Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and today we're going to be tackling the Injustice universe, starting off with Superman. Now, the Injustice universe and games are cut off from DC's main continuity, which in turn makes it its own separate entity. Now, there's been 5 years worth of comic book material, and in this episode, I'm going to be covering year 1 and 2, the second half will be 3 and 4, and the last section will be 5, and the Injustice game itself. Now, this entire video will be done from Clark's point of view, so if I haven't talked about a certain event in this video, it's because I purposely left it out, as I wish to talk about that character in depth another time. Now on that note, let's get on to the video. Now, as we all know, Clark Kent is Superman, lost son of Krypton, yada yada yada, let me break a neck. Now in this universe, Clark has a very stable relationship with Lois Lane, and the two have in fact been together long enough to have actually been married. Now at the very beginning of the comic, Clark learns that Lois Lane's in fact pregnant with his unborn child, so understandably he's overcome with pure happiness. And later that evening, when he goes out to patrol, he meets up with his best friend Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, and in fact asked the Cape Crusader to be the godfather. And all was going seemingly well, until the Joker happened. The Joker would locate and kidnap Lois Lane, and also kill Jimmy Olsen. So naturally, when Clark learned of this, he was panicking. Unable to find them, he reaches out to the Justice League so they can assist him in finding his wife. And luckily, they're able to find some information about her whereabouts, in which they learn that she's in fact not been on land the entire time, but underwater in a submarine. So when Clark learns of this, he goes underwater, finds the submarine, and tears it in half. As he goes deeper within the submarine, he sees Lois Lane being operated on by Harley Quinn and the Joker. He approaches them, obviously wanting them to stop, but when he does, he's hit in the face by some of Joker's gas, which seemingly doesn't affect him. But when he opens his eyes, he sees Doomsday in front of him. Without a second thought, he carries the beast up into the atmosphere, as he doesn't have the time to deal with him, as he needs time to save Lois, right? Now what Clark didn't know is that before Joker had kidnapped Lois, he had killed Scarecrow and stolen his fear gas, and the Joker was in fact smart enough to mix it with kryptonite, and the gas that hit Clark when he entered the submarine wasn't in fact Joker gas, but that very fear toxin. It was only until he exited the Earth's atmosphere in which he realized the entire time he had not in fact been carrying Doomsday, but the entire time it was Lois Lane. He was responsible for murdering his own wife, and due to how overwhelmed his senses were, he was unable to see the kill switch in her heart. This kill switch was linked to multiple bombs within Metropolis, so that when Lois's heart stopped, Metropolis would also die, and that it did. In just one day, Clark pretty much had his world stripped from him. He lost his wife, his child, and his home. And because of this, something inside Clark snapped. He hands Lois's body over to Wonder Woman. He then learns from Green Lantern that the Joker is currently being held in Gotham Prison by Batman, and within a blink of an eye, he ends up at Gotham Prison. He smashes the wall and enters the room, and before Bruce can even convince him, Clark drives his entire forearm through the Joker's chest, and this instantly kills the villain. Now after this, he would retreat to the Fortress of Solitude and try to kind of grieve his pain away. But during this time, the world broke out into an all-out war. Knowing that Superman was grieving, they would take this opportunity to kill as many people as they could. Tired of the bloodshed and the unnecessary violence, Clark would set out the Fortress of Solitude to make the world a safer place, beginning with the Middle East. He grabs a ruthless president straight out of his palace and drags him into the streets, stripping him of his clothing in front of all of the people that he had oppressed. But before he can pass judgment, he's found by Diana, who convinces Superman that if he wants to get his point across, he should do it at a press conference. Now when Clark arrives at this UN press conference, he reveals his identity to the world as Clark Kent, and announces that he's calling a worldwide ceasefire, saying that he doesn't care about your religion or your land. You can be a madman or a dictator. You will suffer the consequences. And things escalate quickly, with many people challenging Superman's power, and failing miserably. Even the US government got involved, and hired the Mirror Master to kidnap his parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent.
Why did you say that name?
He's then warned by Mirror Master to stay out of politics, but Clark is relentless in finding their location, and as such he has the Justice League back him up, and with their assistance they're able to find them in Bolivia. Now ever since Metropolis was destroyed, Batman hasn't been seen or heard from, so Clark wonders why his best friend isn't by his side in his time of need. So Superman flies to the Batcave, in which he interrupts Damian Wayne and Nightwing's training. He passes the two as he wishes to talk to Bruce, and whilst walking past the two, Damian thanks him for finally killing the Joker. Clark finally confronts Bruce and asks why Bruce has been grieving all this time, but Bruce immediately tells him to stop what he's doing, as he's striking fear into the world in order to control it, and this results to a very heated argument between the two, and it even leads to Superman ripping off Batman's cowl and screaming in Bruce's face that he is glad that he's doing this, as he's putting dictators in their place, and that striking fear into his enemies is the same thing that Bruce does. Clark even goes to the extent of accusing Batman for being responsible for his wife and his unborn child's death, and crosses the line by even telling Bruce that he should be an actual father towards Damian, resulting in Bruce punching Clark as hard as he can, although this does not faze the Man of Steel. Now before the argument can escalate, the Batcomputer then alerts the two that is currently a problem going on at Atlantis. Clark then leaves the Batcave. There's a dispute between the Justice League and Atlantis, as Arthur, aka Aquaman, refuses to bend to Superman's will, and Aquaman shows a display of his power, and he does this by bringing creatures from the sea onto land all around the globe. Although Aquaman doesn't want to threaten Clark, he uses this as a display of power. He, alongside Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Shazam, pick up Atlantis and take the entire underwater city to the Sahara Desert. This forces Arthur to bend to their will. Clark then travels around the globe and enforces his own form of justice. And even on one occasion, they would be confronted by a hero from Australia called Galaxor, who understandably saw him as a tyrant. Now despite his efforts, he wasn't only defeated, but was crippled, as when he was slammed into the ground by Superman and Wonder Woman, they shattered his spine. Now not long after this, he would go to another press conference and would address to the world that he had his eyes set on Arkham Asylum, as he wished to remove these twisted individuals from civilization. Now when they arrived at Arkham Asylum, it would be confronted by the Bat family, but this was no shock to them, as Damian Wayne had joined Clark's side. Now the Justice League immediately start removing prisoners within Arkham, with Cyborg hacking the security system and the Flash taking them to an undisclosed location. In order to stop this, Bruce sets off a virus in Cyborg, causing him to fall unconscious, and things quickly escalate from bad to worse, as Harley Quinn, who's currently behind the security desk, releases all inmates within Arkham, leading to a massive fight, which leads to Superman and Batman battling Grundy. Now after they defeat Grundy, they come to the realization that Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing, has been accidentally killed by Damian Wayne, and when that happens, all fighting stops, and Clark comforts Damian as Bruce walks off with Nightwing's body. Now as Bruce disappears, Superman continues traveling around the world, wanting to again enforce his ceasefire. Now whilst doing this, they pick up on a signal that apparently Lex Luthor is still currently alive, having somehow survived the explosion of Metropolis, and in this universe, the two are extremely close friends, and Lex even helps to offer Clark his services in enforcing his beliefs upon the world. Things start to turn quite sour for the League, and they begin questioning Clark's choices, and especially how he's enforcing his will upon people. A perfect example of this was when they were battling Black Adam, in which they force him to say Shazam, making Black Adam turn to his very frail and old human state. Now this global change has in fact been noticed. When Clark enters another press conference, a boom tube opens up, releasing thousands of parademons and a son of Darkseid, Kalibak. When Kalibak goes face to face with the Kryptonian, he realizes how much of a mistake he's made. This isn't quite the Superman he met before. The two battle with Clark having the upper hand the entire time, just brutally beating Kalibak into the ground. Overcome with his rage, he's unable to realize that there are more boom tubes opening up around the world. Shocked by the sheer power of Superman, Kalibak surrenders, but this isn't good enough for the Man of Steel, and he brutally beats Kalibak to death. It's only till after this where he comes to realize that there are thousands if not millions of people dying globally. So at light speed he meets up with the Flash and contemplates whether or not he should cross the line. Flash says he won't give him permission to kill, but there are people dying, and without a second thought, Clark exits the Earth's atmosphere, absorbing sun radiation, and travels around the entire globe, killing every single parademon. He then returns back to the stage where he was supposed to give his speech, but he is instead flooded by Superman charms. Now during this time, Lex Luthor has been creating these Kryptonian pills that grants the user enhanced strength, and Bruce becomes aware of this when an altercation with Damian occurs, revealing to the Justice League that the Hawk Girl they've had around them the entire time has in fact been Martian Manhunter. Believing that Bruce has finally crossed the line, Clark reveals to the entire world that Batman is in fact Bruce Wayne, labeling him as a terrorist. They then find the Caped Crusader and confront him, wanting him to surrender. helicopter, but they don't realize who it actually is until he starts flying. They've been talking to Martian Manhunter the entire time. They eventually catch up with John, and Clark has a brief conversation with the Martian, in which John tells him that he's becoming a tyrant. But just then, he's attacked by Wonder Woman, and in order to defend himself, he morphs himself inside of Wonder Woman's body, suffocating her, and with no other choice, Clark is forced to kill Martian Manhunter. And not long after this, the US launches an attack against Korea, but Superman is able to deal with it within a heartbeat. He then directly goes to the president and asks why he did this, but then he comes to the realization he's been played. This had all been a distraction, and his eyes quickly dart towards the Fortress of Solitude, where he kept his parents as he was worried about them, and a prototype Kryptonian pills. When he arrives at the fortress, he finds out that Batman and his forces are there, and he is outraged, grabbing Captain Atom around his throat. But Captain Atom is no pushover, and he fights back against the Kryptonian. The force of their punches are that powerful that the insides of the Fortress of Solitude begins falling apart, causing bits of it to collapse. Despite Clark's power, he is unable to stand against Captain Atom. At least that's until Diana gets involved. She swings her sword and pierces Atom, but this doesn't kill the hero. Instead, it does something much worse. By piercing Atom's containment field, his body is unstable, which means that he will explode, but not before he can take Superman with him. He grabs the Kryptonian and takes him to Earth's atmosphere, in which he sacrifices his own life in a massive explosion that's the equivalent of 10 nuclear bombs. The blast wave is that powerful that it hits Diana and knocks her into a coma. Now, despite this, Clark is still able to keep going, and he is furious that his former friends would attempt to kill him. Clark then travels back to the fortress, which he finds his parents alongside Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow. Oliver attempts to get his hands on the Kryptonian pill, but Clark knows this and uses his heat vision to melt them. Oliver then harmlessly fires an arrow at Clark. Of course, this does no damage, but it ricochets off him and lands in Jonathan's shoulder. In a fit of rage, Clark backhands Oliver through a wall, horribly crippling the archer. Oliver fires one last arrow, only for it to pass Superman and exit the Fortress of Solitude. Clark completely loses his temper and brutally beats the archer to death with his bare hands, whilst his parents scream for him to stop the entire time. He's only stopped when Martha Kent takes a Kryptonian pill and stops him from punching the already bloodied carcass of Oliver Queen. He then gets into an argument with his foster parents about what he's doing, and even the hologram of Jor-El tells him that what he's doing is wrong and that he will receive no more help here. Superman then flies off to confront Bruce in the Batcave, in which he grabs his former friend by the neck and says that he should also be in Arkham. Now, despite Clark's aggressive nature, Bruce refuses to fight back and instead tries to convince him that what he's doing is wrong, and saying that he isn't honoring Lois's memory by doing this. Bruce then drops a sonic device on Clark in order to disorientate him, whilst Bruce runs for the Kryptonian pill, but he isn't able to get there in time. Clark grabs Bruce above his head and drops him directly on his knee, shattering his spine. Clark apologizes to Bruce, but he says he can't have someone as dangerous as him running about. Clark then sets his eyes on the Kryptonian pill and realizes that Bruce had been stalling the entire time. His computer had been analyzing and breaking down the properties of the Kryptonian pill and sent off this information to Bruce's allies. Clark, out of frustration, applies pressure to Bruce's spine as he wants to know the location of where this information was sent, but Bruce refuses to let him know where. A hand is then placed on Clark's shoulder, and when he turns around he sees Alfred Pennyworth, who then headbutts the Kryptonian and breaks his nose. Alfred had taken the Kryptonian pill, and he brutally beat the last son of Krypton into the ground, leaving him bloody, beaten and unconscious. When Clark finally woke up, Bruce had disappeared. The day after, Clark announces to the world that Batman is now an enemy of the Justice League and that anyone affiliated with him will be arrested and prosecuted for their crimes. And that's it for year 1 of Injustice. Now, during the beginning of year 2, Clark is at Oliver Queen's funeral, in which he attempts to apologize to the Black Canary, but she unleashes a sonic scream at him. With anger in his eyes, he grabs her by the mouth, what stops when he realizes he can hear 2 heartbeats. She's pregnant with Oliver's child. Now later after this, he can be seen in the watchtower next to Wonder Woman, as he wonders when she'll be out of her comatized state. Now as he's doing this, Sinestro appears outside of the space station, and before even Sinestro can react, Clark flies out of the watchtower and slams him into the moon. Sinestro refuses to fight back, as he's not here for a battle, but here to send a message to Cal that they are coming. And what Sinestro actually means is that the Green Lantern Corps have taken notice of what he's been doing, and that his actions of protecting Earth can be seen as oppressing the people, and this can be seen when Ganfett meets up with Superman. Things turn sour very quickly, as Ganfett talks about all of the power that the Green Lantern Corps has, and Clark asks if that is true, why did he sit idly by whilst Krypton died? And when Ganfett says that it was the Kryptonians' own fault, Superman becomes outraged, and the two nearly come to blows, but Superman tells them to get off his planet. So Ganfett leaves with Guy Gardner and Hal Jordan. Knowing that the Lanterns will return, Superman prepares his forces. He also has a brief talk with Sinestro, and Sinestro doesn't deny that he wants the Green Lanterns gone, but he's also able to convince Superman that he does care what might happen to Earth, and does this by handing over his ring. Now not long after this, a Green Lantern patrol led by Kilowog appears on Earth, as they wish to take the Kryptonian to trial, but before they're able to do anything, the entire strike force are hit with a massive laser, although this doesn't put them down. Now when the fight begins, Kilowog doesn't really stand a chance, as the Green Lantern rings work on 4, and Superman can move faster than that, but he is overpowered by Chip, who's able to stop all kinds of signals within Superman's brain, rendering him useless, until Chip is killed by the Sinestro Corps, and a massive fight ensues, with Superman and the Sinestro Corps gaining the upper hand. They wouldn't kill the remaining Green Lantern, but forced them to hand over their rings, and take them as prisoners of war. He then thanks Sinestro as he has now become a very valuable ally. Now at some point, Clark would hire Clayface, and have him infiltrate Batman's units, and to terrorize them by having them see they're dead. Now back on the front line, Superman arrives at Earth's atmosphere of the Sinestro Corps to have his final confrontation with the entire Green Lantern Corps. Guy Gardner at first tries to handle this peacefully, but Clark says that he's an embarrassment to not only the Justice League, but to the human race itself. And like that, the war erupts, starting with Clark breaking Guy Gardner's arm. The battle is fierce, with a quarter of the Sinestro Corps being destroyed straight away. Clark is able to hold his own for a very long amount of time, that is until he gets blasted by Ganfett, stunning him long enough to enter Earth's atmosphere, in which he's then attacked by the Batwing. Although he's able to destroy it, he's then next attacked by Black Canary, who Sonic screams in his face, till he plummets down and hits Earth. He's then shot in the chest with a kryptonite bullet, and Clark is almost defeated. The reason I say almost is because due to the fact that a lot of Yellow Lanterns were killed during this battle, there are a lot of Yellow Lantern rings looking for new hosts, and one of them is the last son of Krypton. With his new ring of fear, he removes the kryptonite bullet in his chest, and fires a laser beam through Black Canary's stomach. He's then told by Black Canary that she's been wearing contact lenses that have broadcasted everything he's done to the entire world. Angered and having bigger fish to fry, he travels back up to Earth's atmosphere, leaving Black Canary on the ground below to bleed out and die. Although she is saved at some point, but I'll save that for her own video. Now when Clark enters the Earth's atmosphere, he begins slaughtering the Green Lanterns. By the Earth seeing the atrocities he has performed, he is now feared by them, and this in turn fuels his ring. He then grabs Ganfett and flies deep into space, forcing him into Mogo the Living Planet, and driving the two into the sun, killing the two, and ultimately destroying the Green Lantern Corps. And that is it for year 2 of Injustice. Thanks guys for watching this video. I know it's been really long, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this, and definitely expect in 2 weeks time, year 3 and 4, and in another 2 weeks, 5 and the Injustice game itself. Now if possible guys, let's try getting this video to 1,000 likes, as you guys have been doing a fantastic job of doing that, and it's a great way of helping myself and this channel out. And if possible guys, try sharing this video around, as it's a great way of letting people know that we now do Injustice content here. Now as always guys, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.